All right, everybody. So let's start this one off right. I wanted to say a few things about my motivation because right now I am running on a little bit of a high in terms of motivation. Like to the point where, like, I got up before the sun this morning. I had 4 blogs done before before 12 at least in the morning. And that's 2 for my personal business and then 2 for this, for Unclarity. And so I'm trying to get as much stuff done as possible while I've got this little burst of motivation, basically until I run out of ideas and things to talk about. So, one of the things that keeps me motivated, and like, I'm not just saying this to try and get interaction, like one of the things that keeps me motivated is momentum. So basically, if I see that these things are being viewed and listened to and somebody comes across it, make sure you leave a comment or send a message or do something, wherever you're listening to this at. So it'll be really helpful because it'll keep me in that space, that mindset. Even if it's negative, like, just let me know you're physically there so that I know I'm not wasting time with this. But anyway, today I wanted to talk a little bit about some blogs that I've written, just sort of going through and just some ideas that have kind of been going through the head, which is like, I think our focuses, and a lot of these are really under a big heading of where our focus is at. I think our focuses in a lot of churches today are just kind of like, they're just off. So let's look at baptisms, right? I wrote about this. You can find it at Unclarity.com. It's on WordPress, or go to Facebook.com/UnclarityPodcast. And basically, I don't know. It's like, it seems like baptisms are so underwhelming in comparison to everything else we do. I've been to a lot of churches in the last 7 years, just sort of, trying to find something that, that feels good. And, I finally found a church where the people are amazing and fantastic and, just wonderful people in terms of, church going people. But the baptisms are all the same everywhere. Like, there's no real, like, the feeling of importance to them. We put a lot of focus into things like music and the way our store, the way our church looks, the aesthetics, all this stuff. Like, we put a lot of focus into those, but our baptisms are literally, we're going to have a regular service. We're going to dunk them, and then we're going to go home. And that's it. That's like, it doesn't feel like a special thing. But baptisms are supposed to be like our big, important, like, public acknowledgement that we're on board with this Jesus dude that everybody keeps talking about, right? But it's just, it's like, everybody shows up, the music plays, goes like it would any other day. And that's another thing. Music is like a level 10, and your baptism is going to be on a level 4. But anyway, the music plays just like regular. You do the dunk. Someone says a prayer, you do the dunk, you do the message, and you go home. Like, it doesn't, and it never comes up. Like it's never like, most of the time it's not even mentioned in the next service. Like, even if it's like a Wednesday or even a night service, like, it doesn't come up. Like, we did some baptisms this morning. It's just gone. Like, that's it. That's the end of it. And usually the message isn't even about baptism, which is weird to me. There's just no real, it doesn't feel like a legitimately important thing, even though it's sort of this big thing that Christians work up, like, oh, you got to get right with God. You got to find Jesus. You got to know Jesus. You got to have this relationship with Jesus. Well, here we are publicly professing that we have that, and it's just dunk and walk. That's it. We're going to dunk you, we're going to walk, and we're going to go. Like, it's never going to come up again. I would bet that 90% of people who have had baptisms in the last 10 or 15 years have gone home and not even spoken about it again at all. And that's just a weird thing to me. Like, is it really that important that we get baptized? If it's not nothing, if it's just another day, I mean, you just basically go swim at church, take a bath at church. I mean, that's basically what it comes out to. Like, do something to make it feel like a monumentous occasion. Make it a celebration. That's what I want to see when if salvation, if coming to God, and sharing that with people, if that is important to you, behave like it's important. Like, let's do a celebration. Let's have a party. At the very least, have a food at the end of the service. Like, have food out there. Do something to make it feel special. Like, elevate it just a little bit. Treat it like you treat your musicians. Churches will go in debt over music and how fancy their stage looks. They'll go all out on their stage and their carpets, but they're not going to spend $100 on food after a baptism. Like, they're not going to put any effort into that. At least not in any of the churches I've seen. I've seen some churches that have really, really expensive equipment, horrible musicians, and horrible baptisms. Like, it's all about this weird aesthetic thing that we got to get them in the door, and then when you achieve the goal, it's just it's a lot of nothing. I don't know. It's weird to me, but yeah. So there's that. Another topic that I brought up was the unspoken prayer requests. It's something that's always kind of bothered me for the longest time, because it's like, why is it unspoken? Like, you're talking to church members, you're talking to people who are supposedly living in Christ, and you don't want to tell us what's going on in your life. I think that's a bigger tell than we realize. People are saying, hey, I have this unspoken thing. That means I don't trust you. That means I don't feel like you're going to take it in a good way. That means that you've exhibited something, that you've shown this person something in the past that makes them think you're going to judge them. Like, they're hesitant to tell you that maybe their spouse is beating them because they think that you're going to judge them. They're hesitant to tell you that they've got a drug problem because they don't want to be judged. Why is that? Like, why does every single church have this going on where it's like unspoken? Shouldn't we just tell people, hey, if you can't tell me what to pray for, I can't pray for you. The Bible does tell us, it says that your motives matter. James tells us that your motives matter. Your motivation is important, right? So if you don't know what the person's motivation is, how can you feel comfortable praying about it? Yeah, you can put your own motivation to it, but I really think that the person involved, it matters that they have good intention too. Because if you can't figure out what their intention is, and they're just out there, they're not going to change their actions. They're not going to change their prayer to something that might be appropriate, something that might get answered. I do think it matters how you go about praying. I think, if you're praying, God, please just fix me. Come fix me, please. I don't think that's a very effective prayer. I mean, you're putting in no effort. You're taking no accountability. And if the only reason you feel like you need to talk to God is just because he should fix you, just because, and you're not going to do anything, you're not going to put any effort, I don't think those kinds of prayers work. You do have to put in some effort. I feel like 90% of these unspokens, if we would actually ask questions and dig and dig and dig, you would find out that most of it is just little things that a little behavior change could fix, things that a mindset change could fix. You get someone's going to get bad news from the doctor. They're going to approach you. You're going to hear a lot of things like this. Oh, my health is bad. My doctor says if I don't get things straight, oh Lord, like those are the types of things you're going to get. I think very rarely you're going to get something like spousal abuse or, things like that. Because if something's that bad, I don't think most people are going to go to a church, because again, if we can't even share the fact that we're scared for our health or we're scared for our finances, how in the world do you think they're going to come and share that their spouse is beating them or something like that? Like, those major things I don't think you're going to get a lot of, because we haven't made it a comfortable space for those things to be brought up. And I don't think most churches would know how to handle those situations. You would just go straight to the Bible and say, oh, well, pray about it, and give no help. And that's why I think you would just get a lot of like health problems. Oh, my doctor told me I have health problems, or, oh, I got finance issues. Like little things that a quick conversation about behavior would easily correct. But we're not having those conversations because for some reason this idea of unspoken prayers is just A-okay for whatever reason. And I don't think it is. It feels very lacking in effort. Why are we not taking accountability for helping people through their issues? Why are we not asking questions? And someone's going to come to you, they're going to say, Pastor, please, I got this unspoken, pray for me. And your response is to just pray for them. You make them feel better. And then right after church, they're going to go straight to the buffet. Little did you know that their unspoken prayer was because they got an extremely negative health report from their doctor. So you've made them comfortable. You've made them feel okay about their poor eating decisions, and you've basically you've prayed them into permission to go and repeat bad behaviors that are causing some serious consequences. And I don't think that's how prayer is supposed to work. When someone comes to you for a prayer request, figure out what you're praying for. I seriously think it would make a massive difference. Because I do believe in prayer. I do believe in talking with God, but I also believe that you kind of have to have some insight. You have to have a purpose and some intent behind it. The Bible mentions it a lot. And one verse I will quote, I don't like to quote, and I'm not going to quote it directly, but the Bible tells us not to put hands on people too quickly. And then every time an unspoken prayer request comes up, it's like, oh yeah, we got you. We got you. And here's the deal. I have no doubt that God could figure it out, but why don't we take some effort and invest in our people? That's why things go so wrong, is because you have, and like I say, all these little bitty behavior things that you could just have a conversation about and correct, or at least give some idea of correction, and they would just go away. And I'm going to say something that kind of frustrates a lot of people, but really what it is, I think, when we use phrases like, just pray about it, God will take care of it. Oh, well, this is God's plan. Oh, Lord. That's just an easy way out. That's just so you don't have to deal with someone else's issues. That's all that sounds like to me, is you don't want to do something that's going to help somebody out. And that's all it is. It's lazy. It's not caring. It's not loving. You're not doing anything for these people when you just pray without asking any questions. And it's not biblical, I don't think. If you can find it in there where someone walked up to Jesus and said, hey, Jesus, give me an unspoken. Or hey, fellas, walked up to a crowd. Hey, guys, I got an unspoken. If you can find that in there, I'll change. My mind is wide open to change. Show me something that makes sense of an unspoken prayer, and I'll consider it gladly. But I don't know. I just don't think that they're very useful. I just don't. Not the way that I see prayer depicted in the Bible. And I was also thinking today about sin, which is rare for me. And I say that because, like, the idea of sin, what is a sin? What sins should I look out for? What's a sin? That's a sin. That doesn't enter my head very often. But I really don't think that's true for a majority of Christians. Like, the way Christians seem to talk about sin, it seems like it's so on the forefront. It seems like it's so emblazoned in there, like they're always constantly afraid and terrified. And I just don't understand that mentality. I don't understand why we have to qualify every little sin. Everybody who watches the news, there's a billion different things that, they get the Christian on, and, you've got Roy Moore and all this ridiculous stuff, and all the conversation is about sin. Not about the one thing that could actually do something about sin, which we claim is Jesus. But I hear so much less talk about Jesus than I hear about sin. And that makes me feel like Christians are some of the most negative people in the world, because that's the only thing that you're going to talk about, is the most negative thing in our religion. We rarely hear about the most. If you turn on the news, you're rarely going to hear about, and this is not the news's fault. This is not the media's fault. They don't have to try. They don't have to dig for this, because Christians voluntarily offer it up. If you turn on the news, all you'll hear is sin, 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 sin. You need to correct your sin. There's not really a lot of discussion about Jesus. Like, if you did a percentage breakdown, you would not hear Jesus mentioned nearly as much as you hear sin mentioned. And now the problem with sin is that it is a negative word. It is the most negative thing in our religion, basically. It's the antagonist of Christianity. And so all you're doing is saying this negative word over and over and over and over and over and over. So Christianity becomes the negative force in our society, because that's all we can talk about is this negativity. Like, it's all negative, sin, sin, sin. There's nothing good being discussed there. And you could say, oh, but you got to start somewhere. Well, start at Jesus, because all of these conversations that start out with sin, 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 they don't ever get to the Jesus part. People are checked out by the time it gets to the Jesus part. People, anyone without a Christian worldview, they don't understand the concept of sin in the way that Christians do. They just don't. You can't pretend, you can't deny it. Like, they just don't understand the concept in the way that Christians do. But here's the thing. They don't understand the concept of Jesus the way Christians do either. And Christians always lead with the worst thing possible. Like, we always lead with the bad news. And anyone who studies, who knows about people, who knows about interactions, knows, like there's the old adage, right? You go in with the good news first, and then you lead with the bad news. Or you do, I think in one of my classes it was called a positivity sandwich. So where you go in and you compliment, you tell where they can correct, and then you compliment again. Like, this is just basic life principles. So why do we not go in with, there's this guy, Jesus. Yeah, there's this thing called sin that we all have, whatever. And then, but Jesus. Like, why does it never go that way? Why is it always sin, 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 sin? Oh, yeah, Jesus. Sin, 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 sin. Like, it never goes the way that most people have figured out how to influence people. They don't ever do the negative first. It doesn't make sense. It's not effective. It's not been working for the longest time. If you don't believe me, look at your numbers. I know you know what those are. I know you're paying attention to those. Wondering why those are going down. It's because you are constantly harping on the most negative thing possible. And people don't like negativity. I think subconsciously they do, but most people don't like negativity, and they'll try to get away from negativity. That's why Christianity's not doing nearly as well as it once was. And we're pushing away people with just horrible ideas and just pointless thoughts. I mean, it's crazy. One of my favorite Christian artists, Michael Gungor, started out. I mean, he was probably easily the most incredible Christian recording artist out there. Like the most talented musician, classically trained. Just every single thing was absolutely just mind blowing. Like every single track was insanely good. Super skilled guy. It comes out apparently that he, and this is back in like 2013, that he reads a certain part of the Bible differently, and he ends up losing shows and getting criticized, and all these things are going on, and the dude almost like he leaves almost Christianity. I think at one point he says he does leave it. He turns atheist. You know, thankfully that didn't stick around, because again, the dude is like a brilliant mind. He's got great ideas and thoughts, but you know, our typical evangelical churches basically blacklisted him, called him everything you can think of, death, and like, yeah, way to go. That's how Jesus would have done it. No, you're insane. The dude didn't even do anything. All he did was have an opinion that wasn't yours. Like that's infuriating. Like nobody else can see something else in the Bible. Like it's got to be the exact same thing that you want it to be. And then the same thing with Lecrae recently. You know, whenever I first started going to more contemporary churches about 7 years ago, it was all the time. Like, oh my gosh, Lecrae. I love me some Lecrae. Now, of course, me being the way that I'm wired, I was never really into like rap to begin with. And then it was like, this is Christian rap. I was like, I don't know about that. But in hindsight, the dude is ridiculously skilled. And he's really good. Like, he's one of these guys that can break out of the stereotypical role that Christianity might have a musician in, for example. Like Chris Tomlin, he's not ever, if this Christianity thing doesn't work out, if it comes out that Chris Tomlin's done something, he's just out of work. There's no way that he's going to go make a top chart topping, pop album or whatever. He can't do that. Not in a million years. But anyway, Lecrae came out trying to basically talk about social justice issues, and Christians want to blacklist him for doing that because, he doesn't say Jesus enough. Well, neither do you. Like, what are you talking about? 90% of your conversations start out about sin. If someone comes to you needing help, all you're going to do is talk to them about sin. Like, what are you talking about? It doesn't say Jesus enough. Get over yourself. He spent a billion albums talking about Jesus. Let him do something. Let him exist. Let him do what he wants to do. Like, it doesn't make any sense that you would want to, like, every little thing has to be a certain way, has to have certain buzzwords. Like, that's weird to me. All these weird little, like if it doesn't have these keywords in it, you can't do it. You know, I mean, the Christian church is no different than a good marketing campaign, right? What does your marketing campaign do? You got to have the right keywords to find the people that you want. Same thing with Christianity. If you're not using their keywords, they don't want anything to do with you. You know, they're not looking for you, which is insane. That's the exact opposite of what Christianity is supposed to be. Is it not? I mean, and again, this is where I bring back the point of I'm totally open to any criticism of what I say here. Like, if you can find it in the Bible where Jesus might have slammed and thrown Lecrae out of his presence, or where Jesus might have thrown Michael Gungor out of his presence please let me know. Because I don't think it would have happened in any way, shape, or form. Like, I don't recall Jesus being that temperamental. And so, anyway, that was a long rabbit trail away from the original topic of sin. But the thing about sin is, I don't think that constantly talking about sin I think it's pointless. It has to be pointless because the Bible tells us that every single person has sin. And this is a message that gets preached every Sunday at almost every single church I've ever been to. Every single one of us has sin. I think that we would all agree on that. Now, every single sin, the Bible says, is the same. There are no tiers. There's not a tier system where, this one's a level 10 sin and this one's a level 8. Like, there is none of that. But for some reason, we like to forget that lying is a sin. We forget that lust is a sin. And we forget that, disobeying our parents would probably be considered a sin. But we're a lot more focused on these big social issues. But here's the problem with that. They are all equal. So talking about and describing and just pointing out, but it is a sin. But yeah, this is a sin. That thing is, you're not actually doing anything. You're not helping them correct the sin. You're not giving them the concept of Jesus, which is the thing that we, again, claim would be the correction to the sin. It's counterintuitive. And so when I think about sin, if I get asked about sin, do you think XYZ is a sin? My typical sort of response is like, yeah, but so is all this other stuff. So I don't even, who cares? Let's not talk about that. Because all it is becomes an argument 9 times out of 10, and the discussion gets shut down before Jesus even enters the equation, and you've lost. You've effectively not done your job as a Christian, or a supposed Christian. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. I don't like to say supposed Christian because I don't like to be the guy that takes away someone's faith. If you think that's what Christianity is, I'm sorry. More power to you. But anyway, my bad. Little diatribe again. Yeah, I just don't think there's any point in even acknowledging sin as something that we should focus on. Because if you're actually focused on Jesus, like really focused on him, sin, it'll be taken care of, right? Is that not what we believe? Like, if you're actually focused on living in the way that Jesus lived, you're not going to have that much sin in your life. If you're actually living or trying to live like Jesus, you're going to have a lot less of a run-in with sin. And you don't have to point out to everyone around you that what they're doing is wrong. Nobody likes to hear bad news from the get-go. Someone's gonna come to you discouraged. I'll say, Pastor, I need an Unspoken. And if you're a good pastor, you'll ask questions. Sorry. If you're a good pastor, you'll ask questions. And then you'll find out maybe they're wanting to sleep with their neighbor's husband. Right? All you're going to say to them is, well, that's sinful, and this is sinful, and this is one of the worst sins. This is a big, bad sin, and sin, any sin. Well, the person came to you already feeling horrible about what they were doing. They're well aware that what they're doing is wrong, or what they're wanting to do is wrong. They're well aware of that. They feel guilty already. So on top of that original guilt, you're going to add another pile of guilt right on top. And then you're going to try to add in the Jesus thing. Well, if you bring someone down, if you bring them down far enough, when you get to the Jesus part, it won't even factor into their equation. I think that's how most people are wired. Because if you beat someone down enough, like, they're just going to give up. They're not going to listen. And then your church members, you talk about sin. If they come to you with a problem, if you talk about sin up front, you're not giving them any information that they don't already have. They already know that whatever they're having issue with is a sin, right? So what do you think you're doing when you just repeat it? Like, it's going to fall on deaf ears, especially considering that the fact that you say it every Sunday or every other Sunday or whatever it is, however often you say it, and they're still doing it, just proves that bringing it up constantly doesn't really help anything. So I don't think it should really be as big of a focus as we've made it out to be. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't add up. It doesn't seem productive, really. So I don't know. I think a discussion should always start with, yeah, it's a sin, but so is all these other things. Like, Jesus. Let's talk about Jesus. Like, don't even entertain questions about is it or is it not with anything other than a yeah or nah. Not really. I don't know. Even I don't know. Let's just I don't really. Let's not mince words. Let's talk about Jesus. Imagine a newscast where the dudes who were supposed, again, crap, I'm sorry. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the supposedly Christian guy. But anyway, these Christians who go on the news and they're going to talk about whatever the issue is, but imagine that all they say was just Jesus. Well, Jesus said, well, this is how Jesus would have approached it, and that's how I like to approach it. But just never bring up the idea of sin. I mean, it would be a completely different dynamic, and Christianity as a whole would come across as a completely different thing. It would be a lot more positive. Because Jesus was all about taking care of people, right? Like that was his entire point of coming here, was to take care of us, to deliver us from the evil. But all we do is constantly focus and run and discuss and talk and hide from sin. It's on the forefront of every single discussion. Why is Jesus not there? Why is Jesus not the first thing that comes to mind when someone tells you about a struggle? I think it should be. I really do. I don't think serious discussions of sin should be in the equation, and maybe until a few discussions in. Like, just show people what Jesus is, who Jesus is, and what he can do. Like, if that's what you really believe, that Jesus is an all-powerful Savior who can take care of people, let him lead the discussion, and he'll take care of it, right? I mean, if that's what you believe, or you claim to believe, use Jesus more as your Savior, or as their Savior. You don't bring sin up because it's, again, you lead with the most negative thing possible, not the most positive. I think we should change that. Do you guys remember the song from the 90s that was Shine by Collective Soul? Like, I was fooling around on the guitar, and I ended up accidentally playing the song, and it's so addictive that, like, it's so catchy and addictive and just kind of cool. Like, I hope you guys remember the song. Here, let me play it. I've got the guitar right here. I'm just gonna strum through it real quick, and you'll immediately remember if you haven't thought of it. And then everybody knows where it goes to from there. And so, I don't know, I just, that came into my mind, and for whatever reason, like I played that little intro part by accident, and just got addicted and ran with it and kept playing until I figured out most of the song. And then there's that solo part, which is insane. I can never play that. I'm not that good, but I even, like, I get this thing with my guitar playing, right, where I like to play the lead parts with little, like, as best I can, I like to play the rhythm and the lead parts together. So like if the lead part in the chorus was the so that was kind of the lead little like melody part in that song. So I would play it instead of doing that part and the main, instead of having to do it with two guitars and doing it in layers, just play the lead with the pinky. And so it fills it out and it sounds really good. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I thought I might share that. Maybe one day I'll play the whole song, but it would be a very easy song, and it would be really cool to see people like playing that at their church, even though it's just kind of like a weird like 90s rock song. But I'm gonna put the guitar away, and I'm going to be working on some music for this. I may actually splice in some like random, really old, like crappy, unmastered, horrible, thrown together music that I made a long time ago, because I've got literally hundreds of unfinished, sort of horrible, what could be called demos, if you would. But I might splice some of that in here and use it for intro music if I can find one that's not horrible. But yeah, I'll make some music for it. There's going to be some videos going up on the YouTube channel. That is UnclarityPodcast.com. Or no. That is YouTube.com/UnclarityPodcast. You can just search Unclarity. That logo should pop up pretty much everywhere, because it should be pretty easy to find. That's why we got the logo. But we're going to do that. I've got this awesome setup that is 100% mobile, and I timed it before I started this episode. I literally, right before I started it, I hit the timer and I took my time. I went extremely slow. I didn't have the little bag I keep everything in ready. I walked over, I picked it up, I set everything up, and I started recording within a minute and 45 seconds with this quality. So no real changes, no real editing is going to be done. So the setup is awesome. It's ridiculously mobile and ridiculously quick to pick up. So I want to try to get some friends on here if they want to do it. I don't know if they would want to, but I would really like to get some friends on here, try to have a little bit of a two-way discussion, try to get someone else's ideas, because I don't want it to be just me talking all the time. I've got this weird like self-esteem thing where it's like I don't want to hear myself, but I'm trying to get over it by doing stuff like this. So again, leave some contacts. Let me know how I'm doing, because I need to hear from you. If you're not helping me out, it'll never get better. So let me know. But yeah, hopefully I want to get some people on here to help me out, and I want to be reaching out on Twitter, Instagram, all these things this week to try and get people to start sharing the show. Bigger name people than me, obviously. But hopefully we can get some traction and try to make this into a bit of a thing. Don't forget about the Patreon page, patreon.com/unclarity. That's where all the support for this show is going to come from. I like that website because it's super easy for people to use, and it's really cheap. Like most sites, you have to use a lot of money, but this one, $2 a month, that's not bad. Who can't afford $2 a month? So I don't know. I figured that would be an easy way for people to show support. And I don't want to use YouTube ads if I don't have to, because there's apparently a ton of issues with people getting demonetized and copyright strikes lately. So I don't want to deal with that if I don't have to, but it'll really just depend on how things go. I'm sure I'll eventually have to do it, but hopefully things will get a little bit better. But yeah, patreon.com/unclarity. If you want to leave a message, send an email to unclaritypodcast@gmail.com, or go to the Facebook page. Just look up Unclarity. You'll find the logo. It's easy. leave a message there. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment on some of the blogs, because that'll always help. Get me some views, get me some traction going. Share it with a friend, and help out the show. Let's grow this thing. Let's make it into something important. Help people out. Give some ideas. And yeah, it's been great talking with you. Hope you have a good rest of your week. Again, I look forward to hearing from you. See ya.